Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis. We'll begin Yud Zayin Amud Aleph at the very bottom. Ve'idach. Continuing on with the Yud Ches Gzeres. So what is the next one in the list of the Yud Ches Gzeres? Ve'idach Omar Tevi Rishba. This person Tevi, Rashi says Rishba is a hunter. He's a place Tevi who is a hunter. Omar Shmuel said the name is Shmuel. Af Gedulai Truma Bo Beyom Gazer. Even what's grown from Truma, that it should have a din of Truma, they were Geyser on that day. Min HaTaira, if a person takes Truma. A Truma, of course, is only mutter for a Kayan, not for a Zara, not for a non-Kayan. Min HaTaira, a person takes the Truma, let's say he takes a seed of Truma, and he plants it in the ground, and then something grows from that. The new growth, the new Gidol min HaTaira does not have a din of Truma. It has a din of anything else that is planted, that when it's planted, it grows, it's harvested, you have to be mafresh Truma, and the rest is chulin. So theoretically, a person could take Truma, a Yisrael could harvest his grain, be mafresh Truma, and theoretically, min HaTaira, he could replant it, and then what grows from that will have a din now of regular produce, where after being mafresh, the small portion of Truma, he'll be chulin and he could eat it. So the Rabban were geyser that if he replants it, it should have a din of Truma itself. What grows, the new growth that grows, should also have a din of Truma. So that was one of the 18 gzeros. My time, and why were they geyser? Omar of Chanina gzer mishum Truma toher b'ad Yisrael. Like we mentioned, it's a gzer mishum Truma toher b'ad Yisrael. Yisrael has Truma. He might now replant it, and it would have a din now of the new growth, would have a din of not Truma, would have a din of new growth, and therefore he would be able to use it. Now it says, the Gemara says, Truma toher b'ad Yisrael. Really, min HaTaira, if someone plants Truma, whether it's toher or even tameya, the new growth becomes like regular produce, and it will be, after the hafroshes, will be chulin tohira. But it says tohira because we say over here that the concern over here, as opposed to what the maskan of the Gemara, that it's a concern of truma tameya, we say here tohara. But strictly speaking, the new plant min HaTaira, the new growth, would be considered non-truma, and it would be tohar, even if it was truma, and even if it was truma tameya. The Rabban were geyser that whatever din this planting had on it prior to the planting, it retains its din. The new growth retains the same din. Omar Rava, how can that be? That can't be the concern over here. How can that be? If you are chayshid a Yisrael, that's what he'll do. If you're chayshid that's what he'll do, and he'll try to circumvent giving the truma to the kayan, well, he has an easier alternative. He won't even have to be mafresh truma to begin with. Well, what do you mean he won't be mafresh the truma to begin with? There's a chi of deraisa to be mafresh the truma, and if he's not mafresh the truma, then it's tevel. He can't eat anything. So what does it mean he won't be mafresh? No, what it means is as follows. The min HaTaira, all you have to give is a minimal amount. Like we'll see shortly, one chita is paiteris as a kri. One seed will pater everything min HaTaira. It's midrabanan that they said there's an ayin yofa, an ayin beinanis, an ayin raw. The mida beinanis is 2%, that you have to be mafresh a larger share. But min HaTaira, that's not required. Now this person, he has this truma, he has a significant amount of truma, so obviously he wasn't so stingy. Because if he was stingy, min HaTaira, all he would have to do is chitachas peteres asakri. Now over here, what are you concerned? That he'll take this amount of truma and try to circumvent giving it to the kohen by replanting it? That's a whole big asek. He has an easier route, a very easy route to circumvent giving it to the kohen. All he has to do is just give a minimal amount, and then min HaTaira, then it's no longer considered tevel. So if you're concerned of that, if you're chayshid that the person would go this far, he would go so far to try to circumvent giving to them, they would do all this replanting, well, you should be chayshed that he won't even be mafresh to begin with. Since Minat Torah, all he has to give is one chita, Kirishmul, and you see that he didn't do this, we have no reason now to suspect that he would be such a tsar ayin, that he would be so stingy that he would do all of these and try to circumvent giving to the kohen by going through this elaborate process. From you see the fact that he listened to the Rabbanan and he gave the higher amount, he gave roughly Mida Bainin is 2%, where Minat Torah he didn't have. So you see that he's not a stingy person to that extent that would go through all kinds of tachbulas to try to circumvent giving the truma to the kohen. So that's not the concern over here. That's not the reason for the gzer. What is the reason, therefore? Ella, the Gemara says, gzeira mishum truma tamei b'yad kohen. The gzer is rather the reason that they were geyser, that the truma that's replanted, the new growth, should retain its original din. The reason is it's a concern of truma tameya in the hands of a kohen. If truma is tameya, so truma has to be given to the kohen, even a tameya. Now, truma tameya cannot be eaten even by a kohen, but truma tameya could be used by the kohen for fuel, and he can use it and burn it. Now, what we're concerned about over here is that the kohen might want to replant this truma tameya, because truma tameya has only a limited use. It has a very limited use. It can only be burnt. It can be used for fuel, but it can't be eaten. It has a limited use. So perhaps a kohen will have truma tameya and want to try to derive a greater benefit from it and replant it, and the new growth, min ha-Torah, will have a din of chulin tahirin, and will be considered a tahar, and he'll have a full benefit from it. Now, so what's wrong? So what's wrong if he does that? Why do we feel a need to be geyser? Because in the interim, he will have it in his possession for a long period of time. The time that it takes to now take it, replant it, have the new growth, he'll have this truma tamei in his possession for a long period of time. He has to wait for the planting season to plant it. In the interim, it might come to misuse. They might forget that it's truma tamei, and they might come to eat it. So the Chachamim did not want to have truma tamei in the possession of a kohen for a long period of time, because he might come to eat it. Now, if this was an option, if this was a viable option, he would keep it in his possession. So therefore, they were geyser. On that day, they were geyser that no, it should not have a din of tahira. It should retain its status as tameya. Now, since they said that it retains its status, they had to make a loy plug. They couldn't say only truma tameya retains its status, but truma tahira does not retain its status. They had to be geyser in order to uphold the gzer. They had to be consistent. They were geyser that even though min ha-Torah, whatever you plant, the truma that you plant, the new growth, becomes chulin tahirin, even if it's truma, and even truma tameya, and even, as Rashi said, there's no chilik. If zara kala ain't zara kala, not only if it retains the bulb, it retains a vestige of the original truma. But even if it's completely decomposed and there's no vestige of the original truma min ha-Torah, it would all be considered chulin tahirin. The Rabbanan were geyser that it retains its initial and original status, and we treat it, if it was truma tameya, it retains its status as truma tameya. If it's truma tahira, it retains its status as truma tahira. That was one of the 18 gzeres that they were geyser by. V'idach, what is another one of the gzeras? Amar Rav Chia bar Ami mishmei de'ula af mi shehechshechloi baderech. If a person is Erev Shabbos and he's walking, traveling on the road, and now it's becoming dark, and now he has his money with him, he has his wallet with him, nice and kisel and nachri by bayam gozer. They were geyser. They made, actually, this part of it is a heter. It's something that's mutter. They were allowed the person to give his wallet to a guy to carry it for him. Now he can't carry because the Shabbos come. They allowed him to give it to a guy. But the corollary of that, Meidach Kisa, is, the other side of that is that they did not let him carry. Now, of course, he can't carry it. How can he carry it on Shabbos? No. Minhat Torah, you have an eitzah that you can carry pachos midalet amas b'shus rab. The Isra carrying b'shus rab is dalet amas. He walks less than dalet amas, and he stops. He's on milofush. He stops, and then he goes again, less than dalet amas, and he stops. If he walks with a start and stop, where he does not walk dalet amas consecutively, minatayra, that's mutter. But the Rabban were concerned that a person might end up walking a full dalet amas. It's very difficult to walk in that manner. It's very difficult to estimate how far the distances are. They're afraid that he'll end up walking a full dalet amas at one time. They said that eitzah is not available to you. But on the other side, they gave this eitzah to give it to a goy. They give it to a goy is mutter, but they were geyser, and this is one of the gzeras that you cannot go pachas midalet amas. Ve'idach, what's the next gzera? Ve'idach, Amar Wali, Amar Avi, Masechet, they were geyser pitan, ushamnan, v'yenan, b'noisayim, kulam yudches doverhein. Now this is all considered one gzera. It's a list, but they're all interconnected. They were geyser that to eat the bread, pasaku, not to have the oil of a goy, not to have the wine of a goy. Now, yayin nesach, wine that was used for avodah zarah, is also minater, and it's also bahana. They were geyser on stam yainam, that you can't drink it, and you can't have enough from it either. And they were geyser on b'nai seim. Now, marrying a goya is also midaraisa, but they were geyser on yichud, meaning they were geyser. This is all considered one gzera. They were geyser not socializing with a goy, because it might end up that they'll be now alone with the guy's daughter, which then would would follow into that, which would be having relations with the goya. So they therefore said you can't eat the bread, because people socialize with bread, with oil is with cooking, and with wine, because people drink the wine. So they're guys you can't drink stam yainam, and yain stam yain is also bahana otu yain nesach. But in terms of this gzeira, for this purposes, it's drinking the wine, because you shouldn't socialize with, so that person should not come chas v'shalom to be alone, have yichud with b'nai seim, with the daughter of the akum, and which that in itself would lead. That's a different gzeira. Having yichud could lead to having relations. Sumer says, so now we have the complete list of the Yud Ches Gzeras. We have the whole list of the Yud Gzeras. Now that's fine according to Rameir, who is geyser that you cannot put the kli, who's geyser that the kli that's put under the tzinar, that the rainwater is dripping into it. If you put it over there, even if he went about other businesses, and that wine over there is considered maim she'uvim, and there cannot be used for a mikveh, that is one of the Yud Ches Gzeras. El Rav Yosi Shiv Sarahav, but according to Rav Yosi, who does not list that as one of the Gzeras, you only have 17, not 18. So what is the 18th according to Rav Yosi? Ikahad, Rav Acha bar Ada. You have the following case: the Amar Rav Acha bar Ada, Amar Rav Yitzchak Gozer al Pitan Mishum Shamnan. There were geyser on the bread Mishum the Shemen. There were geyser not to eat the bread because of the oil, like we mentioned. Val Shamna Mishum Yena, and on the oil because of the wine. Val Pitan, so Frek the Gemara al Pitan Mishum Shamnan. What do you mean on the bread because of the oil? My ol midashemen pas. Why would there be geyser on the bread because of the oil? Why is oil more reason to be geyser than the bread? Meaning, as we said before, this is all so they won't socialize with the yakim, with the goyim. So why would there be geyser on pitam mishum shaman because of the oil? Ella, geyser al pitam misham mishum yena. They were geyser on both of those because they didn't want the person to have drinking the wine with the goy. Val yenam mishum b'nai seim, and as we mentioned before, on yenam is mishum b'nai seim. They didn't want to have yichud with the goy. Val b'nai seim mishum davar hacher, and on b'nai seim they were geyser on b'nai seim mishum davar hacher, on account of something else that's not mentioned here. Val davar acher mishum davar acher. Now this is the additional exera that we're referring to. This davar acher mishum davar acher. So they were geyser on the daughters. They were geyser on the daughters. Mishum davar. They were geyser on all of these socializings on account of not coming to be with their daughters. They were geyser on their daughters, mishum davar acher, that were geyser on the daughters, mishum davar acher, that if the person would socialize with them, if they happen to have yichud with the daughters, they'll have relations with the daughters, that'll lead to avodah zarah. Now, as I mentioned before, marrying the daughters is also min ha-Torah. Relations with the daughters, they were geyser on all of these things that shouldn't come to yichud, and the yichud should not lead to relationships, and the relations would, because that we lead to chas v'shalom avodah zarah. Now, as we mentioned before, these are considered one gzera, but it's al davar acher mishum davar acher. This is the additional one. This is a new gzera that we're referring to here, and this would be, according to Rav Yossi, would be the 18th. My davar acher. So they were geyser on davar acher mishum davar acher. So what is this davar acher that they were geyser on? There's a new gzeir over here of a davar acher mishum davar acher. Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak gozra al tinik nachri shemetama beziva. They were geyser on a tinak nachri, on a baby, even a child of a nachri, that he should be now metama beziva. He should have a din of a zav. Now, min ha-Torah, a goy doesn't have a din of a zav. Zav is if a man has there's an emission, so there's a re'iyah, there's an emission of fluid from his body. He becomes tumah, has the din of tumah. By goy, there's no such din. At previous gzeres that they were goyzer on goyim, that on goyim, if they had such a re'iyah, then if there was such a secretion, they would have a din of tumah ziva. Here, on that day, on the Yud Ches Gzeres, they were geyser that even a child who doesn't have such an image, they were geyser that goyim should have a din of zavim, that there should be tumah. And if they have a din of tumah, then Yidden would stay away from them. In those days, they were zoyer on tumah. They were eating kayam truma and kachim, and Israelim were eating from their korbanos, the ones that were permissible kachim. They were very zoyer on tumah v'tara. Anyone that had any din of tumah, they kept away from them. So they were geyser even on the children, on the babies of the goyim, that they had a din of zovim. They were tomei, so that the children would stay away, the Yiddish children would stay away from the goyish children. Why were they geyser? Why did they have to make that separation even from a tinuk, even from little children, from babies? So they didn't want them to be together because there was a chashash that they would have mishkav zachar, that they would have relations together. So they were geyser on that, and therefore they wanted to ensure that there would be a separation. They were geyser that the tinuk had a din of a zav, they had a din of a zav, so he's tomei, they would stay away from them, and that would create the separation to prevent the mishkav zachar. So that is the 18th trek to Gemara. Well, Ramer. Now, if we add this to the list, according to Ramer, who was geyser, had the gzera about the vessel, the kalim that were tachos the tzina or gabi maim shuvim. Ramer nami tishrei, and according to him, there's 19. How do we reconcile this with Ramer that there's only 18? Our answer is eichlin v'kalim shenit b'mashkim, the very beginning of the list. And we said that food or kalim that became tomei with a mashke, that became to have a din of a sheni. At the mashke, we gave the liquid a din of a rishon midrabanan. And midrabanan, we said that if they come into contact with food or kalim, it makes them into a sheni midrabanan. That's one category. Eichlim umashkim, that came into contact with mashkim. Eichlim, a kalim rather, that came into contact with mashkim. Eichlim that came mashkim that become a sheni and pasels truma. That's one gzeira. So according to Ramer, that is a list of 18. According to Rav Yossi, that's considered as two separate gzeiras. That is the list of the 18 gzeiras. That concludes the discussion of the Yud Ches gzeiras that there were gozr boy b'yoyim, some which include Hilchos Shabbos. That's why it's brought down here. And now the Mishnah will continue later on we'll continue with the halachos of Shabbos.